Thanks for tuning in to the Mission Matters podcast, where we feature successful, mission-driven leaders committed to creating a positive change in the world. Our mission with this channel is to inspire other leaders by providing industry insights, new ideas, and inspiring stories from the pros.
Well, hello again. My name is Paul Fyth, host of this show where I talk with leaders heading up mission-focused organizations, leading from the heart, inspiring others, and making a difference in our communities. This episode, of course, is sponsored by Paul Gregory Media, or PGM for short. PGM is a B corporation or a benefits corporation. To find out more what that means, visit paulgregorymedia.com. I have with me today Luke Greeley. He is the Associate Dean of one of the most successful programs in the nation with a focus on leadership. What is that program? It is the Rutgers Business School, and he's the Associate Dean of the undergraduate Newark program there. So welcome, Luke.
Thank you, Paul, for having me. Excited to be here.
Yeah, me too. I can't wait to dive into our conversation because you've been in academia for now 15 years, so you know a thing or two. So I'd love to know what led you to your journey to Rutgers, and what does life look like? What does life look like for you right now there?
Yeah, happy to dive in. So, yeah, it's been kind of an interesting journey for me in my career in higher ed. I started, my undergraduate education not having any idea what I wanted to do with my life. But I had a really positive experience as an undergraduate student. I was involved on campus. I had the opportunity to serve as a research assistant for one of my professors. And through the interactions I had, I guess, with faculty and administrators as an undergraduate student, I said, wow, like, how did you get your job? How do you get a career in this field? And I had such a good experience in college, I never wanted to leave.
Wow. Well, I have to stop you for a second because, First of all, that's how they get you, right? Research assistant. And then you start hobnobbing with the staff and the administration. And you're like, okay, but what was your degree in as an undergrad?
Yeah, I had a dual major. So I went to a liberal arts school, which, you kind of can explore, test out different things. And just by virtue of kind of taking electives, I ended up as a sociology major and a religious studies major. And both of those areas just kind of had an organic interest for me. Like, what are some of the institutions that help our society function? How do we relate to each other in terms of values and ethics? And those are questions I asked a lot as a young person, and I still ask now. So those were my majors as an undergraduate student. Okay,
so not a far departure from that, really.
No, not really. I'd say it does seem a little bit odd that I ended up in a professional school and a business school, but I can maybe explain a little bit about how I ended up here.
Yeah, and what does life look for? Well, I can't even say this because it's an alliteration. What does life look like for you now these days? What is your typical day and responsibility?
Yeah, so I oversee an undergraduate business program of it's about 2,500 students, though we're bringing in one of our largest classes ever. So we're going to be approaching maybe 3,000 students this fall term, which is exciting. So what do I do on a daily basis? It changes and varies, and that's what I really like about my job. So everything about the student experience, from the point of recruitment through to getting oriented and onboarding into the university, to giving the academic advisement a student might need about what majors we have, what courses to take. I teach as well as overseeing the program. So I'm involved in curriculum development and ensuring that kind of the learning approach that we take at the school is effective and practical, and that it delivers a high value for students. And kind of in the life cycle, one of the big things that we focus on at Rutgers Business School is career success and career outcomes. We are really big on ensuring that our students know what the job market looks like, what are the skills that they will need to be recruited by employers. And we do really well on that front. So in the last few years, we average about 85 to 90% of our students have a job, a full-time job offer within 3 months of graduation.
That's incredible.
So we're very excited about that metric, but it's something we track because we put a lot of effort in terms of advisement, career counseling, programming to ensure that they're ready for the job market.
That is truly amazing. So that's why it's one of the most successful programs in the nation, right? Because of this career readiness, and 85% have jobs. I mean, because you hear about, I don't know firsthand, but you hear about people leaving college and they don't know what to do with their degree, and it's almost as if they've not wasted their time, but they weren't shepherded to that next step. So that's great. Kudos to the Rutgers Business School. We were talking before we started recording about this idea of social mobility, and I really want to unpack that because I want our audience to know what it actually means, what social mobility means, because I didn't know, and how that affects your curriculum.
Yeah, absolutely. So one of the 3 strategic priorities that we have as a business school is this idea of social mobility or social impact. And we see our role as a public state university that we are able to help our local economy, but importantly, help citizens get matched up with needed jobs in the state. And the idea of social mobility comes in that we serve a very diverse student body. We're one of the most diverse campuses in the nation in terms of student demographics. But we also serve a student body where over half of our students are considered low income at the time that they enter based on their financial aid profile. And so they qualify for certain levels of federal support and state support in the form of grant and scholarships. But we see it as our mission for these often first generation, low income students to help them achieve career success, right? And change the trajectory of their lives and the lives of their family. And so one of the big metrics that we look at is return on investment. So that compares the average cost of our students in their 4 years of education. We all know the cost of college is top of mind for everyone. And so at Rutgers, we have a huge focus on making sure that college is affordable and providing scholarships and grant aid to students from low-income backgrounds. But then on the mobility piece, that's where the career development and our curriculum comes in. Our average starting salary for our graduates the last few years has been above $70,000. And so we track that, and there's actually rankings agencies, for example, Poets and Quants is a big one in the business school world. And so we have one of the top 5-year ROIs in the nation, comparing what you're making your first 5 years out of college relative to what you paid for the cost of that college education.
There's a lot to unpack there, and I think you've done a great job. I just want to kind of recap this because there's a lot going on here. You're listed as one of the top programs in the nation because I think, right, this social mobility, you have one of the top 5 most diverse student population. You're serving basically an underserved community, right? We've got low income and probably some others in there. And then you've got one of the top 5-year ROIs in the nation. So people are, first of all, making over 70 your first job out of college is incredible. And you had mentioned one other statistic. I think now's the perfect time to put it. The percentage of people that get a job within the first, I think, what was it, 3 months or 5 months?
3 months out of earning their college degree. Yes.
And what's the percentage of students who get a job offer in the first 3 months?
It's our outcome rate is generally around 85%.
85%. Just that alone, no wonder why the program is one of the best in the nation. People should be flocking from all over the country to be part of this program, I would think.
Well, no, we're very proud of that number, but it does take an enormous amount of resources and I'd say stakeholder input to achieve that. We recently tried to be very intentional about kind of what we call like the career pathway of our students, so that from early on in their first year in the program, they get exposure to, the basics of like, what does a professional resume look like? How do you give an elevator pitch to an employer when you're at a career fair or a networking event? What are the opportunities that we see our graduates being hired into right now, right? So like giving that coaching to students who, especially their parents maybe have never been in the corporate world. They don't necessarily have a sense of even what networking is. So we try and be very intentional early on and off the bat about what is the direction you think you might want to go in? How can you explore these career pathways? And then I'd say along the way, we try and pair that with experiential learning. And so this is connecting students to things like internships and externships.
Very important.
We do a lot of case analysis and simulation in the classroom that's based on real world business problems. We bring in industry and guest speakers into the classroom so that students can interact and ask questions of them. And so, I think that like kind of the awareness piece early on, the early skill building in terms of, how can you plan out or map out a potential career or what skills you'll need to acquire, and then actually giving them the hands-on learning along the way so that they are attractive and marketable to employers by the time they graduate.
Well, you're absolutely right. You don't have a successful program like this without the incredible resources and work that's being done by the administration and staff. So that's great. Now I'm going to ask you a question, and it may sound a little self-serving, so I'm sorry, but does marketing fall under the umbrella of the business program?
It sure does. Yeah, we have six majors, and marketing is one of them.
Wow. Okay. What are the other five?
We also have accounting, finance, supply chain management, leadership and management, and management information systems.
Okay. Those are all great career opportunities, and they're all increasing in what's the word I'm looking for? Opportunities that are opening up. SAP, for example, alone, working with a company that does SAP as a value-added reseller, is exploding right now after the pandemic.
Yeah, absolutely. I actually worked on a project and put out a paper in the last year with some of our faculty in the Department of Supply Chain Management. And we were looking at exactly what you're referring to here is what's called like a talent gap or a skills gap in different industries. And coming out of the pandemic, supply chains were top of everyone's mind. And one of the big things that became apparent was that there's just not enough people studying the skills that are needed to be successful in something like supply chain management, whether it's data analysis, forecasting, understanding logistics and how things get sourced and procured and delivered to your doorstep. And there's just not enough people in what you might call like the educational funnel moving through high school programs, which might have a vocational element in terms of business and logistics. And even in undergraduate programs, like only about 8% of students who study business study supply chain management across the country. And so we'll produce maybe 80,000 graduates who have a degree in supply chain management, but in a given year, there's about 200,000 openings in supply chain management. So there's just this huge talent gap that we are trying hard to address, as a state university to help fill those jobs and get the skills upgraded for the businesses that are here locally in New Jersey and for global organizations as well. But it's not just supply chain. I think the technology is changing so quickly in fields like marketing, as you mentioned, in accounting. What you can do with tools like AI and different kinds of analytics programs it really is moving faster than educational institutions can keep pace with. So we're trying really hard to stay ahead of that curve and help our students learn skills like how to relearn or have continuous learning as a skill that you'll need throughout your career.
Yeah, and we're gonna go back to AI in just a second, but that's got to be one of the challenges, right? How do you uh, get people interested in, let's just say, one of those majors, right, where it's probably not as popular as some of the others, supply chain management? How do you filter that information down to the high school senior to say, hey, there's a great opportunity here because there's a lot of demand for this job, and if you get a degree in this, uh, your chances of getting a job in the first 3 months, first of all, are not only higher, but you also the salaries in those types of jobs are also higher.
Yeah, that's a big challenge, and we've been trying to do a lot of proactive outreach to high schools and community colleges to address that pipeline issue, to kind of raise awareness. So at the high school level, Rutgers has developed something. It's called the Rutgers Global Logistics and Supply Chain Management High School Curriculum, and so some of our faculty developed kind of prepackaged um, curricular materials that qualify for um, career and technical education at the high school level. And so we have a training program every summer where high school teachers can learn about the curriculum, how to teach it, how to market it to students so that they can see the value in it. And yeah, we give them projects that they can work on. And in fact, we've been doing a case competition where we'll have 20 or 30 high school teams compete at the end of the year as like a final project on a supply chain management issue, and that's been really successful in raising awareness as well.
Well, that sounds fun. So yeah, you guys are really, because my concern was you guys are doing all the work on the skills gap analysis, right? And then how do you get that information to people that could actually benefit from that and use that and make a decision? Is that the field that I want to try and get into? And it sounds like you're doing a great job with that. I like that last idea. That sounds pretty fun with the teams.
Yeah, we love business schools love case competitions. So that's we love people giving a chance for people to try out their skills and get like real-time feedback from, often we'll have like industry professionals on the panel, and they love the chance to kind of give some coaching and pay it forward to the students. So it's really a good match when we can do events like that.
Nice. I'm glad that partnership exists. Well, you don't get to be one of the best programs in the nation without stepping on a few landmines. So I'm sure you've had challenges, and this is where I'm circling back, Luke, to the AI piece and the keeping pace with innovation. Explain to me some of those challenges. We were talking about that a little bit before we went on air.
Yeah, I mean, one of the things with AI specifically, I think, is just the rate of change and understanding from like an effective educational perspective. Like, how can we ensure that students are able to use these tools effectively without it replacing meaningful learning, right? And so when things like ChatGPT officially first started rolling out to the public, there was a lot of panic around how are students going to use this to, essentially cheat or use
Yeah.
this to write assignments for them or solve
Shortcuts.
problems for them. Yeah, and create shortcuts. But we quickly realized as a faculty body, the discussion turned from, okay, we're not going to prevent this thing that is now becoming ubiquitously used, and businesses are adopting it quickly at an enterprise level. So we need to think from a curricular perspective, what is appropriate modalities of learning using this tool, and how can we reframe maybe some of the assessments that we're doing. If it means, we still want students to have writing skills, well, how can you have them use a tool to help improve their writing without totally replacing their ability to like formulate an idea, construct an argument, kind of evaluate what they're putting out there from a wording perspective. So, all those questions have been top of mind for the last 2 years, and it's been
Yeah.
a challenge.
Academia is struggling with that all over the country, all over the world.
Yeah. Yeah. And, it's occurring at the same time that we have a little bit of what's been called like an engagement problem or an attention problem. Uh, there's publications in our field like the Chronicle of Higher Education or Inside Higher Ed. And you get stories like these, if not weekly, certainly monthly, where um, students, I think during the pandemic, lost some of their ability to keep attention, keep focus. Their brains have been rewired based on the smart devices that they're using. And so from like an instructional perspective, it's how can you keep meaningful engagement in the classroom, keep them focused without getting too detracted or distracted from all the different technologies that are available to use. So it's like we want them to use the technology effectively, but we also want to make sure that they're learning in a meaningful sense. So there's a fine line to walk there.
Yeah, that's a big challenge, it sounds like. And I wonder how that's going to unfold in the coming years. I know I hear from my daughter, who's a teacher. She finds it very easy to sniff out when people are finding a shortcut or cheating on a paper. And we just had this conversation, I think 2 days ago. She was like, I'll ask him what this word means because I know it's not a 10th grade word or whatever. And they're like, I don't know. It's just so very easy to find out who's using it and who's not. And you get to know the students over the course of a semester too.
Yeah, the challenge for us in the university level, especially like a public institution where we serve, tend to have larger programs and a larger average classroom size. This kind of comes with, we're trying to keep a low cost of education. It can be difficult if you're teaching a classroom that has 50 or 100 students to be able to have the human to human interaction to recognize where a student might be leaning on a technology more than you would like them to be. And so we're trying to find ways to circumvent that challenge of resources. So doing things like teamwork is a really big thing that we emphasize at our business school. Teamwork and collaboration, because that's what they're going to be doing in the professional world as well. And so when you can ensure that there's a mechanism of like peer-to-peer feedback that's meaningful and students get a sense of who's actually making valuable contributions to the team, that helps them see where there's a gap between, just kind of phoning it in using a GBT versus I actually know this material, I'm conversant. So you're trying to align what is the content knowledge, what is the skills that you need them to learn with the social dimension, right? And where that overlap is, you kind of can envision those as concentric circles. The content knowledge overlap with the social dimension of being able to explain to others what it means, being able to work with others to solve a problem. I think that's where we're seeing the most effective way to bring the tools into the classroom.
Well, you would know, right? You've had some work published in AI in the context of education. Is that work that was published more along these lines of what you've been discussing?
Yeah, absolutely. So I recently wrote an article with a few individuals I met through the Rutgers Graduate School of Education, and that's where I did my PhD work. And essentially, the thrust of that paper that we did was about how we can't just let AI kind of take over what you might call like the busy work of education, right? So the teacher writes an assignment where they use an AI to help develop the assignment, the questions. The students then use an AI to respond to those AI generated prompts. And then the teacher can use an AI to grade and assess. And like that's an awful feedback loop because it's removed human interaction. it's essentially automated the learning process. And so there's nothing meaningful going on there. And so what we tried to argue is that we need to use technology in a value add human focused sense, right? And find ways in which we can create in the curriculum, we assess its value by the impact it can have in the world. And that's where kind of the experiential learning, simulated learning, case studies, I think are really important because it's giving students like exposure to practical problems where when they go out into the business world, or if they're working in a nonprofit or trying to solve a community need, that we create learning situations. They may be AI assisted, but they're helping you to assist in change, assist in accomplishing something that has a tangible net effect outside of the classroom space. And so that's like we made I guess what you would call a theoretical case for that kind of framework. But in my daily work, I try and incorporate that in my own teaching and in sort of some of the curriculum development that we're doing here at the business school.
Well, I'm glad you're thinking, and there's people thinking about this, right? Because it's like you said, you can't imagine a worse feedback loop than AI generated prompts, AI generated answers, AI generated grading, and it's certainly you could certainly see it happening and getting in that direction. So I'm glad that you have people thinking about that and how to measure impact, measure the net benefit out of so you're not shying away necessarily from AI or technology. You're just embracing it as long as the impact is there and as long as there's a human-centric approach to it as well, it sounds like.
Yeah, that's exactly right.
Right. I think you need that in order to have something meaningful benefit out of that. Well, this has been extremely interesting, Luke. I've learned a lot, and it's just extremely interesting to me, all the things that are going on, and this program that you have with this diverse student population, underserved communities, and an 85% job offer rate within the first 3 months. It's just it's pretty incredible. I think there's a lot of college administrations out there that could learn a lot from the model that you have there going on at Rutgers. Any parting thoughts for our listeners with all this?
No, Paul, I would just say though, for as much as those metrics might sound good, we learn a lot from our peers and from folks in our community. One of the things that I love about working at Rutgers Newark in particular is as a campus, we see ourselves as based as part of the community. In fact, a term that gets thrown around a lot is anchor institution. So just thinking kind of holistically and not being kind of the ivory tower, but instead create programs, pathways where whether it's high school students or just local residents can benefit from what we're doing here at the business school in terms of economic development, innovation in terms of research. We learn a lot from others, and I think that's a great approach. I'm looking forward to continuing listening to your podcast. I've enjoyed hearing from all the other different types of nonprofit work that are going on in the world. I think it's good to get that mission-centered modeling from others. So I appreciate the time and I appreciate the opportunity to share with you and learn from you as well.
Well, thank you so much. And I like what you said about Anchor School. It really is about community and lifting up communities. And the fact that you're a community school that has no problem reaching out to high school students and doing these competitions and letting people know about the good work that you're doing in terms of skills gap analysis and fulfilling that need. And a lot of that need is staying right there in the community as well, right? They can be working for a global institution, but they can also be working for a local one as well.
That's absolutely right. That's
great. Lifting up communities. All in with that. Thanks so much, Luke. Till next time, everyone.
Thank you, Paul.
Thanks for listening to the Mission Matters podcast. We'll see you again next time, and be sure to click subscribe to get future episodes.